name's Steve. I'm one of two economics teachers here at Rochdale. I'm going to briefly talk you through some of the bits of the course, just a quick overview of what we do in economics, and at the end of the presentation I'll leave my email, so feel free to drop me an email if you've got any questions at all. You've got microeconomics, macroeconomics, and then principles, which will test you on everything. So what is microeconomics? Natural question. Microeconomics looks at incentives and why people and businesses do what they do. So we'll look at prices, and we'll also look at, in the second year, at psychology as well, in an exciting new field called behavioral economics. So it examines whether or not people are actually rational. Some of the other topics that we'll examine with microeconomics will include why it's so stressful to buy a new car. We'll also look at something called market failure, which examines how it's possible for individuals and businesses, when they're left to their own interests, to their own devices, to not necessarily act in the best interest of society at large. And obviously we've seen that more recently with the coronavirus. Macroeconomics takes a bigger picture and it looks at wider things in the economy. So in macroeconomics, which we'll study in the second half of the year, we'll look at the things you see in the news. So things like inflation, we'll see why have Freddo prices increased so much. We'll look at the financial crisis and the impact of the coronavirus, both the short-term and the long-term effects of that, and maybe what caused them. We'll also look at unemployment in a fair bit of detail. I'll let you pause the video at this stage because I want you to just quickly have a look at how economics really applies to the real world, and how you can take your economics textbook and really try and notice whether or not that applies to what you see around you. In the second year, we'll answer even bigger questions. So we'll ask ourselves, what actually is the European Union, and what's the case for being part of it or leaving the European Union? We'll look at the big arguments for and against doing that. We'll also examine different ways to measure health, wealth, and happiness of countries. So over and above just income, we'll look at things like access to healthcare, adult literacy rates, happiness. So we'll be looking at development economics in a fair bit of depth. We'll also examine inequality, so how much is acceptable. We'll also think about policies that governments can use to try and address inequality. And we'll end the course with quite a challenging topic that looks at, where does money actually come from? If most money is just numbers on a screen, where do those numbers come from? Who puts them there? What limits are there on too many being created? In terms of trips, we have for the last few years been to Manchester University and competed in an investment challenge where students are given £500,000 on a screen, and they've got to buy and sell things and try and trade that up to as much as possible. A very frequently asked question for economics is, do I need maths to study this? The short answer is not high-level maths. Things like percentages, ratios, and graphs will get you through A-level economics. There's nothing really more challenging than that. In particular, percentages and graphs are the most common types of maths that you'll need. You'll need to be able to draw graphs and interpret them. However, there is something you need to be aware of, which is, should you really enjoy this subject and then go on to do it at university, to study at a top university, they would often require A-level maths alongside your economics A-level, maybe even further maths. So that's worth looking into, because there at university level, the maths demands become much greater. And where can economics take me? Well, economics can take you to a whole host of different fields. You could work for the government on local or national policy. Sports teams are hiring data scientists, so students that can look at big sets of data and help them win games. Healthcare, there are loads and loads of different career routes into healthcare using your economics degree. Accounting and finance students, you might wish to choose economics. And finally, in the top right, I'm going to let you do a little bit of wider research. Economics can let you create fields that never even existed. So I'll let you do a little bit of research on Sir Arthur Lewis in the top right of the screen there. He grew up in Manchester and essentially created his own field of study. And very finally, your challenge. Economists get a lot of predictions wrong. We get some right, but we get an awful lot wrong. So your challenge is, just write me a quick email. How do you think life will be different in January? And should you choose to study economics, for a bit of fun, we'll reveal these in January and we'll see whose predictions were closest. Okay. Any other questions, folks? Email me as well. My email address is there, so don't hesitate to get in touch.